This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. The President of the United States visits Cambodia. The Ukraine's foreign minister sits down and talks with the Khmer Times about war and Russia. And China talks of curbing illegal gambling, but also the One China policy. Now more on our headline story. The story that dominated this week's news was the visit of the President of the United States during the ASEAN summit. The meeting was agreed to be a huge success, but there was one gaffe on the part of the President that left many wondering. US President Joe Biden has warmly congratulated the Cambodian Prime Minister on the country's brilliant success in hosting and chairing ASEAN, and on Cambodia's support for expanding ASEAN-US relationships into a comprehensive strategic partnership. Following the bilateral talks between the two leaders, the meeting between Hun Sen and Mr. Biden was held in the capital at Phnom Penh. The two leaders discussed the continuation of cooperation, including law enforcement in the fight against transnational crime, culture, as well as demining, peacekeeping and the environment. Regarding demining, the PM called for more contributions from the United States to help Cambodia achieve its mine-free status by 2025. There was, though, one fly in the ointment when there was one major verbal slip that nobody could have failed to notice. The United States President said on his arrival, "I want to thank the Prime Minister of Colombia for his leadership as the ASEAN chair. But after such a long flight, I don't think anyone could hold that against him." The ongoing Russian-Ukrainian conflict being the top topic at the ASEAN summit this year, with Cambodia regretting that the two nations missed the opportunity to hold talks in Phnom Penh, despite the kingdom having offered to facilitate negotiations. Many thought it was the perfect opportunity for Putin to try and find an off-ramp to his war that is rapidly turning into an unmitigated disaster for the Russians. The summit also failed to adopt a joint understanding, as Russia and the US have failed to agree on a format for a joint statement, following the 18 nations' heated discussions over the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The EAS was attended by the leaders of 9 ASEAN member states, as well as US President Joe Biden. And with such heavyweights as the Australian Prime Minister, the Chinese Premier and the Japanese Prime Minister in attendance, it was hoped some sort of framework would be reached. The ASEAN chair expressed its regret that the Russian representatives and the Ukrainian Foreign Minister had failed to even meet. Cambodia had offered to host talks between Russia and Ukraine in a bid to ease tensions amid the ongoing war. Unfortunately, neither Ukraine nor Russia met here, Prime Minister Hun Sen said, and added, "We see no sign of peace talks between the two sides." The Ukrainians noted that the Russian delegation did not ask for a meeting, as is usual in diplomacy. In an interview with the Khmer Times, the Ukraine foreign minister said he saw the war ending with victory by Ukraine, saying, "We will fight until we prevail, because it is our country, our land, our people." China's Premier and the Prime Minister have agreed to strengthen their relations and to crack down on illegal gambling. Cambodia also agreed to support the One China policy. This policy is a very hot topic for many nations, as some see it to being an aggressive stance against Taiwan and its independence. The two countries agreed for law enforcement to collaborate against telecommunications fraud and illegal gambling. Cambodia explained it would also support the One China policy and vow to fight against any activities that undermine China's sovereignty. This, of course, is all about Taiwan, and this policy has proven to be very contentious with many nations, including most of Europe and the United States, who stand firmly with Taiwan as an independent country and not a part of China. China sees Taiwan as a breakaway province to be reunified with the mainland, even if it takes force. The people of Taiwan wholly disagree, and continued arms sales to the island show that Taiwan is preparing to defend itself. The US Navy prowls the seas off the coast, and they have promised they will intervene if China takes action. The agreement to toughen laws on online gambling is one thing, but the bigger issue is the support of the One China policy that has many nations across the globe deeply concerned, as potentially it could spark a horrific war involving the world's two largest nations. The Ukrainian foreign minister, who is attending the ASEAN summit, paid a visit to us at the Khmer Times this week. In his exclusive interview, the minister gave us a first-hand account about his country's ongoing conflict with Russia and how he sees the war ending. We asked the foreign minister about the ongoing Russian offensive and how it is taking its toll on Ukraine, especially the civilians. The minister responded by saying Ukraine is now liberating its territories from Russian occupation, and he said, "We are advancing in the south and the east of Ukraine, but Russia continues its attacks on the central eastern part of the country." Russia invaded Ukraine without any legitimate reason to do so, which is against the UN Charter and violates the principle of territorial integrity and international laws. He added, "The biggest problem we are facing now are Russian missiles, because Russia is using them to terrorize the civilian population and hit residential areas, as well as our energy infrastructure. They deliberately target electrical substations to cause blackouts in villages and cities, even in the capital of Ukraine, where 4 million people live. Now, this is a terrorist practice, not warfare. This is a deliberate attack on the civilians, and we are looking for ways to address this." He also noted that the best way is for Russia to stop fighting and withdraw from Ukraine. But since they are not willing to do so, we are reinforcing our aerial defense to shoot down Russian missiles, to protect our people from indiscriminate killings. When asked if he saw an end to hostilities in the near future, he said, "The war is going to end with the victory for Ukraine, and Russia will be forced, one way or another, to withdraw from our country." In business news, there was some very welcome progress in the central pillar of Cambodia's economy, and that is agriculture. It has been announced that milled rice exports surged by 10.6%. That equates to $324 million. And for farmers, that is very welcome news. Cambodia's milled rice exports rose by over 10% to over 500,000 tonnes in January and October of this year, according to a report from the Cambodian Rice Federation. The kingdom earned $324 million from milled rice exports, the report has said, adding that milled rice has been shipped to 56 countries and regions. China remained the biggest buyer of Cambodia's rice during that period. The milled rice export to China was nearly 250,000 tonnes, sharing 45% of the total exports. Another 25 countries in the European Union bought 180,000 tonnes, accounting for 35% of export. The CRF said, "The Cambodian Rice Federation has made great efforts to boost Cambodia's milled rice exports in order to promote the community, especially for farmers, as this is a central pillar to the continued success of Cambodia's increasing exports. And there are more plans to build on this success by producing more rice varieties that are resilient to climate and also produce a higher yield." And now it's time to look at our sports news. World Cup is soon to start, and the controversy of Qatar hosting the Cup rolls on. In fact, the whole affair is considered by many as a total farce. As soon as it was announced Qatar had won, there was deep suspicion on how a tiny desert state with no history in the World Cup and scorching summer temperatures had even won the competition. Allegations of FIFA members' corruption and of taking cash for votes left the whole affair reeking of corruption and wrongdoing. Even the US prosecutors accused 3 former senior FIFA officials of receiving bribes for voting for Qatar. But we have to wait until the 20th of this month for the first game in this tainted World Cup. But right now, we can delve into the Premiership League.
And here are those results. We see that Manchester United got 2-1 against Fulham. They'll be happy with that. They've had a very irregular season so far, as has Chelsea, and it's not getting any better for them. They went down 1-0 to Newcastle. Arsenal still on a triumphant march, 2-0 against Wolves. That keeps at the top of the table. But the score that interests us is darling Nottingham Forest, our adopted team. Now, they scored a goal, and the opposing team, Crystal Palace, didn't. So it's time for fireworks because Nottingham Forest have won a game.
It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week.
And here is that weather. The temperature's around the 30-degree mark, but the humidity has soared. It's up in the 80% region, and that's no surprise. We can expect rain and storms as we progress through the week. And for myself, I'm particularly relieved. This is my last segment for this show. And if you noticed earlier that I look like death warmed up, that's because I've got COVID. But the show must go on.
This has been the Khmer Times News. You can contact myself at the studio by mailing us at ktnewsstudio@gmail.com. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next Saturday for your weekly roundup.